button and we're up and going, I think, I hope. Hello everybody, welcome to the stream. Hopefully everyone can hear me. If you can hear me, please tell me that you can hear me right now. That would be very, very useful. Thank you very much. If not, then that could be a problem. It's a problem that we will have to find out a little bit more about. But welcome on in. We've got a little bit of time before the next match, which is Man City versus Wolves. The other way around, Wolves are at home, but it doesn't particularly matter too much. And I figured we would use this opportunity to talk a little bit about an update that has sort of affected one of Leeds United's main targets. Specifically, in this case, Facundo Buonanotte, who we all know is a very, very good winger, currently plays at Brighton and Hove Albion, and is one of those sort of players that I think has a very high ceiling in front of them, but it's a matter of being at the right club to get to that ceiling. Thing is, I think Leeds United have a very, very good chance of being that club, and hopefully that points us all in the right kind of direction. And we've had a little bit of an update specifically surrounding him from Fabrizio Romano. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hop over to the tweet and we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about it and talk about everything. Here we go. Romano says that Facundo Buonanotte isn't involved in the Brighton squad as he is expected to leave before the end of the window. Now, I've seen a few different sort of conversations around the way in which he could be leaving Brighton, including some people believing it would be a loan, some people thinking loan with an option, some people just saying straight up buy. I'm not entirely sure what direction that one is likely to be headed in, which is why I'm not going to make too many sort of speculative bits of chat specifically about that one. This is then followed by stating that Borussia Dortmund is seen as the priority, but there are several clubs behind Facundo for the final 2 weeks. Now, we know from what we have already learned that Leeds are one of those several clubs because, you know, we've been quite heavily linked with a hell of a lot of wingers. Buonanotte is a winger currently at Brighton that we have a decent bit of interest in, which sort of says that we're going to be a part of that conversation. For me, the question is, are we enough of that conversation to get that move done? We will have to find out. It depends on what Borussia Dortmund want to do, which is quite interesting. I've got no idea what you're talking about there, Leon, but that's completely fine. Sunderland. Yeah, Sunderland did really, really well. I think that might be more of a sign of how West Ham are an absolute mess, though, because I know that financially behind the scenes they are in a little bit of chaos, and similarly in front of the scenes, absolute chaos. But the important thing that we can learn on the Buonanotte thing in this specific instance is that he is looking for a move in this window to somewhere. I'm going to guess probably Dortmund is the preferred option, as has been mentioned by Fabrizio Romano, but Leeds are part of that conversation, and mentioning that there are other clubs in the conversation is quite helpful, because a lot of the time what Romano will do is he will go into things and he will say, X player is subject to interest from club, he only wants club. This at least says that the door is wide open and there is a pretty damn good chance of a move happening in our direction if we get a little bit lucky. So we'll have to find out. In addition to that, another further little bit of news that we've discovered today was on a player that, as far as we knew, had a pretty decent chance of a move to Leeds United, being the backup fullback option of James Justin. James Justin being England international, I think, probably, maybe, at some point. Yeah, England aren't great at having fullbacks, so I think James Justin falls into that category. Can play on the right, can play on the left, and has been a pretty big part of the Leicester side. In addition to that, Leicester also played El Canouse, so my feeling is that with the reported release clause having expired, it's going to be a big old case of, we'll just assume that he's our player now, in the same way that we did with Georginio Rutter. But James Justin in the squad, the issue with having someone that is interest to transfer interest, that is, come on, Brian, where are you right now? The issue with having someone that is subject to transfer interest in your first team is that sometimes those players get injured. And the last we knew, Leeds had a very, very big interest in a move for James Justin, somewhere in the £7 to £9 million range in terms of bids and numbers and that kind of stuff. He seemingly wanted to move to Leeds because you'll be back as a Premier League player. You've got a decent chance of a good few minutes because I think he'd be brought in as competition on both sides rather than just an alternative, as is very clearly the case with Sam Byram. But then bad things happened. So I'm going to search up what happened on Twitter. I'm still not calling it X. Screw you, Elon. But Fossey Hub, who tends to have a decent bit of news, specifically surrounding Leicester, had a bit of a view on it, being James Justin is forced to leave the pitch due to injury. Leeds' move could be off if it is a serious injury. Obviously, the move would be off because he wouldn't be able to play for Leeds, and that's a pretty big problem when you are trying to sign someone to act as cover for a player that is already out, and another one of your defenders, being Sam Byram, is injury prone already. And then on the left, you've got Goodmanson. He seems to be fine, but we're not 100% sure yet. We're not going to be diving in headfirst trying to sign a player that is pre-injured, and we don't know the specific nature of that injury yet. So I imagine the first thing that Leeds are doing right now is getting on the phone and being like, what did you do? Because I thought we had a near agreement on this one. What did you do to that player that we want? And it could cause some pretty damn big problems for getting that move done, and it might make us look for more targets. I'm not 100% certain, because again, you genuinely can't be. If it's anything more than a couple of weeks worth of injury, there's a very, very big chance that we just say, well, no. Bogle isn't 100%. There's no need to dive in and do business with like a player that isn't quite going to be good enough. Well, I say good enough. Injured. I'm trying to find anything of the injury here. And I'm very genuinely struggling to. Who is the under-21's right back? Could he not be cover? That's the question, isn't it? Leeds United under-21 versus Aston Villa. I'll find out for you. Because the 21s played on Friday. Harry Gray was a pretty big part of that side, which makes me think that the chance of him playing this coming week is very low. Yeah, having a look at it, it's a guy called L. Dudley. I don't know who you are. You're new. And then Linu played at left back. Linu being the guy that we signed from. Was he City or was he Liverpool? Because I know we got one from each. Louis Dudley is the right back, so I wouldn't necessarily want him. And in that case, we can keep Sam at right back, and then it would be a big step to say, okay, Linu, can you be a backup left back for the senior squad? That's a little bit much of a leap for me. But it says that we might need to work something out in terms of a backup move for the backup fullback, which is never a position that you particularly want to be in. I've got to be honest with you. We need to have a little bit of a conversation about the team news ahead of this week, because I didn't really talk about that at all. So we will have had today another training session at Leeds United after the training session that was yesterday, and we will have one tomorrow, and we'll have one on Monday morning. Those are the 4 training sessions that Daniel Farke was talking about, in which he is able to establish where we are at with Jayden Bogle. If Jayden Bogle is fit to play, I very, very firmly believe that he will play. Because at that point, he had a day or two of team training before the presser. Then he got into the presser, we were told he's got another 4 practice sessions. There's potential that he might be able to make it on Monday. I think if he comes through all of that without any niggles or issues, then we're going to get Jayden Bogle in the starting 11. That's the dream. There is a reasonably good chance that we don't end up in that situation, and it needs to be one of the backups, which I hope isn't Isaac Schmidt, because everything that we've seen of Isaac Schmidt in pre-season tells me that we need to not be playing Isaac Schmidt in a starting 11, but we'll find out where we're at. It's a little bit of a spooky one, I've got to be completely honest with you. Funny that James Justin for backup in case of injuries, now he's injured, what the fuck. Yeah, it's not great. I do think Bogle will be okay, but it's one that we need to look at. Byram out of Byram and Schmidt is the choice that I would make. I've got to be honest. But it depends on what we sort of want, because we know that Schmidt does the more direct attacking stuff, and if Farke feels he can get enough sort of dropping in and support behind Schmidt, then that sort of fixes it. Any update on Sebastian Bornau? No, I don't believe there was any discussion of Bornau in the presser either, which makes it a little bit difficult. Thing is, DCL isn't match fit, right? It sort of depends. So a lot of players throughout the off-season will go through their own individual training regimes and make sure that they are staying fit and healthy and good and fine. Look at Patrick Bamford as an example. Got himself into being a big buff dude, and that was absolutely fantastic. And then it turns out that he wasn't going to be a part of the squad. But my thinking is he's done that to show to other clubs, look, I'm very clearly physically in good condition. You want me at your side. Which is a pretty damn good show of sort of oomph from him, I've got to be honest with you. Whether it works or not, we'll find out, but there is clear proof that even as a free agent, players aren't just sort of letting themselves go. In the same way that you're not letting yourself go without popping a like on the stream. Thank you very much. And subscribing, that would be massively appreciated. Any rumours on Bamford's next move? Not that I have seen, but I can have a very quick search for you. But I've not seen anyone be particularly interested in it. No, there's a few people theorising it'll be like a mutual contract termination, but there's nothing really concrete saying that we do that. It's all very if, but maybe. I don't think that'll happen. I've got to be completely honest with you, and I'm quite mad that I've given them a view, which is a bit of a shame. Melly off to Italy. Is he? Not seeing anything around Italy. Have I got an FPL league? No, I do not. Because what I tend to do with FPL is I will pay attention for 2 weeks and then I will stop paying attention, and I don't want to run an entire league that I stop paying attention to. That feels like it would be not doing it justice, and if I want to do something like that, I want to do it properly, you know. Como linked. Why are Como linked? Como. I'll check the FBref page. Just see who's in that damn squad. Never mind. I'll try Transfermarkt. Como 1907. Why is my mic being a little bit janky? For some reason it's not picking me up as loud as normal, which is a problem. They've got Jean Boutez, Mauro Vigorito, and Enric Menk. Enric Menk is... They've loaned him in. So I don't think you loan in a goalkeeper only to not play the goalkeeper. So I think they're probably good for keepers unless they sell one. Weidman reported on it this morning. It might happen. It's one where I don't know enough about Como's situation. I can probably have a little bit of a chat with someone that is sort of in and around the Como conversation, because I know someone who lives around there, and I've got various co-workers who are directly sort of working with Como stuff. But we'll have to find out, I think. Ask Andrea Russo. The thing is, Andrea is a football genius, don't get me wrong, but he's got his speciality. And at the same time, like, I work with the equivalent of Sky Sports for Italy, which means that I can just sort of say, right, person responsible for this, have you heard anything on this? Cool or not cool. Like, it's that's the direction that I can go with it. So it kind of makes sense. I wonder if we should just ditch the Leicester boys and get the others, as it's become a joke with injury and release clauses that may not exist. Yeah, it's getting a bit weird now. I think we get a shift on at this stage. And I think we will get a shift on at this stage. I think we've got 2 more coming in. I don't think it'll be fullback and winger and striker. I think maybe if there's a third, it's another creative player to sit behind, but I don't see the point in getting another centre forward. Because at that point, you've got 4 senior ones and Harry Gray, which is, like, at that point, you're losing benefit there. I don't think you really gain anything at that point. Have we updates on Justin yet? I will have a quick look. Who the hell is it? Cifuentes that is currently Leicester's manager. I want to see if he's said anything to the press. I'll sort by latest, but it's all going to be people calling for his head, which is quite fun. Refuse to blame Cifuentes, calamitous defending. I don't think they've said anything about James Justin yet, which is a bit of a shame, because that's what we're sort of interested in right now. Need another 9. We don't need another 9. At this point, we got 4. 4 will probably do the job, I've got to be honest with you. Hurry up, sign James Justin. If he's injured, then fine, etc., etc. The captain didn't, but he came off injured after 77 minutes. Question is it an actual injury, or is it... I don't know. I've not seen any pictures of him coming off. That's the thing. If there was like he's limped off or he's had to be stretchered off, then that would be a little bit more sort of telling. But there's nothing like that. So it's incredibly difficult to try and work out where we're at with James Justin because there's just no information. And I hate when there's no information because it leaves me in a little bit of a spiral, and that's not fun. Sad to say, but if we don't sign another number 9, we're getting relegated. I don't think that's the case. I think at this point, in terms of nines, we've got Calvert-Lewin, who can be a quite strong work rate striker. We've got Piru, who his finishing is just ridiculous. And we've got Mecha, who is that sort of physical big boy bully kind of thing. With that, you've got three fairly reasonable, differing-ish profiles of striker. And I don't think there's any chance that we're in a position where we have to drop down to the Harry Gray level. And all of those players, when fit, do quite well. I know when fit is doing a lot of work, but Piru is always fit. Piru hasn't missed, basically, I think he's missed a single League Cup match in his time being a Leeds United player. That's it. So he's going to be fit the vast majority of the time. Mecha, admittedly, has had injury issues, but seems to be okay at the moment. Calvert-Lewin having just like passed a medical makes me feel a lot more confident around him. Admittedly, I was a little bit spooked, but if you see that a player is missing a lot of games for a hamstring thing, when it comes to a medical, what you're going to do is you're going to be staring at that hamstring and going, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And then if he turns out to be fine, he turns out to be fine, and you sign him. And then in the event that all three are out, then sure, it becomes a case of someone has to fill in there. And if that's Harry Gray, that's not great, but fine. If it's Willie Nonto, that's not great, but fine. If it's Dan James, that's not great, but fine. And that would take a wild injury crisis. Last season, our third choice striker, Pat Bamford, has been deemed completely nothing. He got very few minutes. Mateo Joseph has left because he thought he didn't get enough minutes as second striker. Now imagine getting to the point where we have 5 options up top. That's where it gets a little bit nuts. I thought they were looking at the striker at Stuttgart. I believe they are. Demirovic, who is a very, very, very good forward. Just my concern around Demirovic is it one that will mess with the way that the changing room feels? Is it one where you've signed a very, very good, very, very promising forward, and the issue is, in exchange, your other big profile names don't get any minutes, and they get annoyed, and they get angry, or do you leave Demirovic out? And then he's like, well, you signed me, what the hell did you sign me for? Why am I here then? And you sort of end up in a little bit of a difficult cycle in those situations where you spiral a bit, which isn't great, and I think makes things difficult for us. I'll have a very quick look at where he's sort of played season to season on a little heat map. If you give me a moment, I've got stats, F11 it, there we go. Let's go to his... Why can't I see the Bundesliga? That's the DFL Super Cup, that's not what I need, is it? No, very obviously not. Bundesliga, there we go. So, Bundesliga heat map for last season. Why is it being like this? I really don't like SofaScore sometimes. There we go. Heat map for the Bundesliga. That's not screaming a number 9 that's stuck. That's screaming a number 9 that is happy to sort of move across the system and be a little bit more versatile and support the left wing and support the right wing. So there's maybe a little bit of space for him in there as a perhaps creative-ish player. But then at the same time, there's a little bit of a question mark around, okay, but would he want to do that if he's being signed as a striker? So if we were to sign Demirovic, we just cause ourselves a few points of complication, I think, which isn't necessarily great. On asking why we're so slow sometimes in the market, I think it's a case of wanting to get the right targets. Because if you just jump at whoever's made themselves available, then you end up with someone that you don't actually want. You end up with like the 4th or 5th on your list, whereas if you give it a little bit of time, you can end up with the top of the list, and then you got a better player. And you're not stuck with someone that is like a worse choice later on. if that makes sense. To address what Slinker said, saying Leeds need to stop looking at Championship players, I get what you're saying, and I get the general gist of it and the meaning. However, using the same argument, Jorginho Rutter should be a Championship player because he was signed by a Premier League side from the Championship. Somerville should be considered a Championship player because he was at a side that had been relegated. Same for Tyler Adams. Same for so many players every single season. And I think to sort of boil it down to that level of simplicity and say that these players are Premier League, these players are Championship because of where you sign them from, isn't actually understanding the level of the player. Like, at the same time, you could sign... Hang on. I'll have a look through my binder of football cards to find a nobody youth player or someone. No, I probably don't want to look at City for a nobody youth player, do I? Why do I keep going to the pages with good players for the point that I need very much not good players? No, not Scum, not City, not Liverpool. Fulham? No. No, your actual names. No, you're also names that I recognise. There we go. So, for example, if you are looking at players that you consider Premier League and Championship, in this version of the world, because he is currently at Chelsea, you are considering Harrison Murray Campbell, who is just a youth guy that is potentially like hovering around the fringes of the Chelsea squad. You're considering him to be a senior player. And you're considering him to be a Premier League footballer, and that's fantastic. And he can go on the list of players that we want. But then at the same time, you look down and you're saying, well, he got relegated last season, so we can't bother with signing that guy, because that'd be too bad. We can't bother signing El Canouse, who has interest from pretty fucking big sides. Like, similarly, I believe Buonanotte, I think, played at Leicester last season. Does that make him a Championship player because he was in a side that got relegated? Or because he's owned by a Premier League side, does he become a Premier League player? I think defining players by your Premier League, your Championship, is reducing it a little bit too much and just sort of ruins the way that you're able to look at players. Because you need to look at players for their attributes rather than look at players for their level. It's because he's shit, that's why they went down. Again, no, because if he was shit, why would Borussia Dortmund want to sign him? Why would we be in that situation? Because, like, right, it's so easy to oversimplify things like this and go, you're bad because of this, you're great because of this, and this would be the league that you are playing in. Because they're greedy with money. You do not understand Borussia Dortmund. Whereas, like, talent ID teams in football clubs know how to do this. They know what a good footballer looks like because it is their job to know what a good footballer looks like. And they know how to make sure that they are heading in the right direction and they're developing properly. And they can see the progression season on season because that's what they do. Simultaneously, look, yeah, there we go. By that logic, we should have never got an Ampadu or Tanaka. Tanaka was in the second division in Germany, which is a worse level than the Championship, I think. But we signed them, and they did pretty fucking well, which is why you can't just judge someone by what league are they playing in, because at the same time, Jamie Vardy was signed from the 5th tier of football, went to Leicester, got the Golden Boot. Is he still like a Vanarama National League player? I'm sorry if I want my own opinion. Oh my fucking Christ. Right, okay, we're doing this. You having your opinion doesn't mean that it's exempt from criticism. You know that, right? You can say your opinion as much as you want. I'm not stopping you saying your opinion. If I was doing that, I would be deleting your messages and blocking you, but I'm not. Me disagreeing is me having my opinion and saying that back to you. Because that's how conversation and disagreement works. That's how that goes. You can't just sort of go, pfft. It's my freedom of speech, actually. I think I should be allowed to say it. You did say it, and I disagreed with it, and that's fine. We can both have those opinions. Jesus Christ. I hate that we're concentrating on champion. No, but that. And to counter your point, I believe that categorising someone as you're a championship player and you're a Premier League player is overly simplifying the situation and is likely to lead you to missing out on positive targets. Jamie Vedder started in Stockbridge, then FC Halifax Town, sold to Fleetwood Town, then to Leicester for 1 million. Yeah, like, you climb the ladder. That's what happens when a footballer gets better. They go up. Doesn't make them... No, and that's why we're not signing players from Sheffield Wednesday. That's why we're not signing Barry Bannon. Because Barry Bannon is a championship player that isn't good enough, but he's not below the level because of the fact that he is a championship player. He's below the level because of who he is as a footballer. That he himself defines what his level is, rather than like the club that he is signed to, because various reasons. But we need to spend a bit more time looking at the attributes of the footballer themselves than the specific clubs that they play for, because if you're doing that, you're just sort of affecting your own ability to watch football in an unbiased manner, I think. And that's not good for anyone. That just means that you don't enjoy it so much. We all have opinions, doesn't mean that opinions are the right ones. Yeah. And that's why, because, right, I'm going to set this out, because it's start of season. So I'm going to... Ow, hiccup. Hiccup hurt. Why did hiccup hurt? I'm going to set out the stall right now, so everyone understands. Nobody in this chat will be banned for an opinion, whether I agree with it, whether I disagree with it, anything like that. Nobody gets banned for opinions. The reasons that people get banned is if you are spamming shit, because very obviously I want people to actually be able to read the chat and have a conversation. If you're just like, I'll do an example. If you're just going... If you're spamming the word banana, like I just did, get out. What are you doing here? Clearly you don't want to be part of the conversation. The other reason that I will potentially ban a person is in the event that you are just actively abusive. If you come in and you are being straight up insulting, discriminatory, abusive to anyone that is either on the channel or in the chat or just in general, just don't be a dick. That's the rule. Don't be a dick and everything will be fine. Be disagreeable, that's okay. I can disagree with what you have to say and your opinions. Just don't be a knob. Like, it's pretty simple. Also pretty simple is popping a like on the stream. It's currently at 66 and it'd be lovely if it would reach 100. Anyway, I'm going to end the stream very, very, very soon because it is about to kick off over in the Man City versus Wolves match. But we are going to do what we always do, and we're going to do a cheeky little raid. And the raid is currently set up for Mr. Joe Wainman. Now, we know the rules, and so do I. Specific rules for doing the raid have a tendency to be we pop the word cheese in there, and if we don't pop in the word cheese, then we pop in some puns about cheese, but we don't mention that we've come from this channel. We just don't do that at all. We just go out shouting the word cheese. I can't believe what's happening. That was Gouda, for example. Pep Gorgonzola, that's a very good one. But we're just going over there, and we're going to shout about cheese. And you're going to be automatically redirected at the end of this stream. So, going to bring it to a close. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, pop a like on it, subscribe. You can become a channel member if you like. It's $2.99 a month. It'd be absolutely wonderful if you could. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all later. Let's get going, Cheese Army. And stay sharp.